How's it going, boys? And yes, another Asmongold video, and you all know what that means. It's time to learn about something. And today we're going to be learning about statistics and analytics. I have said this a million times before. If you were watching Asmongold for the entertainment, good on you. I personally watch Asmongold for the entertainment quite often, honestly. But when you hear him try to make a smart take it with a huge grain of salt because he has yet to be even remotely close to the truth. Usually, any take he makes that involves statistics, analytics, business, or money is extremely green or flat out incorrect. Asmongold for these subjects is the same as Hassan is for politics. If you do not know in depth these subjects, or on a more than fundamentally basic level, it does seem smart, it does seem correct. But the moment what is being said is put under scrutiny and against someone who understands what is actually being said, it all falls apart. And this is the case for this video. Now, we're not going to be watching the video. So if you want to understand this video better, what I'm talking about, then please watch his video first and then you will understand better what I am saying. But I am going to give you the quick rundown of what's happening. Asmongold claims that there is a huge bot epidemic on Lost Ark because this is how the Steam charts look. And, well, you know, by its own, obviously this does tell us absolutely zero information. First thing first, as always, if you're an analyst, then you notice this thing first. For anyone who wants to be an analyst, remember that in some cases it is smart to remove the highest and lowest values in something because those are aberrant values when they are pushed to this extreme level. This gives us no information. Literally, the server has been down and that's it. So, this already, if you do not know, plays tricks on the mind. So these drops seem a lot less than they actually are because of this. And this is one of the reasons why I think, honestly, Asmongold made the conclusions that he did. Because this fucks with your mind. This legitimately fucks with your mind. You need to actually calculate the differences in these values. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. These values by themselves don't serve anything. As we can see, the lowest is 440 and the highest is 566, which is roughly a 20 to 25% dip from the peak, which is not a lot, by the way. Especially when you compare it to something like Dota 2. Look at this. 2.8 dip and 6.2 high. That is a significant difference. That is a literal 50% difference, by the way. Counter-Strike, look at this. 3-2, 8-0. That is, again, 50% or more sometimes even a difference. That is insane. And then you look at something like Elden Ring, which seems a little bit more in terms of the Lost Ark that we saw, but this is essentially 100 versus 160, which is still way more massive than Lost Ark. So if you look at these data sets, on a very fundamental level, you can easily deduce that there's something wrong with Lost Ark. But that is the problem. That's what Asmongold did, and that is why he's wrong. You can't just look at something as complex as a deduction of a player base and compare it to these things and just say, that's it. Furthermore, if you watch Asmongold's full video, I will be going into detail why it's extremely wrong later on. But obviously, from a glance, there's a problem with Lost Ark. Lost Ark is a deviant. It is strange. The numbers don't seemingly add up to everything else that we are seeing. The drop is around 21%. 20, 25-ish. This peak in particular is... let's actually just do it. Because you should always do it, even if you think that you can guess it by mind. Look at this. So let's take it 4.4 and 5.6. Let's look at this percentile from 5.6 to 4.4. Let's go 21% because this is the peak I remember. And now let's do it for Counter-Strike, for example. 3.1 and 8.2. 8.2, 3.1. Let's go 62%. Wow. Yeah, Counter-Strike had a bigger one, though it was 50%. But as you can see, that's one hell of a difference, right? 5% not a big deal when we're talking about numbers and statistics like this, honestly. And by the way, it can be different for everything. For something, 1% deviation is big. For other things, 10% deviation is nothing big. But in this case, it's clear that Lost Ark is something special. And to understand that, we need to understand what we see on this chart. On this chart, we see player numbers. If you're a good analyst, then you know that it doesn't matter, is this per week, is this per day, is this per year, is this per second. As long as all of these numbers are in the same time period, I could not give less of a shit. Because these numbers are going to be accurate against one another if it's the same time period. Unless there have been like holidays when something's off and so on and so on. But that's more for business analytics. For gaming analytics, you don't have to worry about that. So, we need to understand what's going on there. And we can see that, wait a minute, we can see times here. Now, ain't that interesting? This is UTC time. This is essentially Central European time for all it's worth. Pretty much the same thing. And we can see that the go up a header, for example, for Lost Ark, starts at 7. Keep in mind, this is the time when Europe wakes up, essentially. For Eastern Europe, it's already 8 or 9 o'clock, by the way. So, this is when everyone wakes up. They wake up, they start playing, and around 7, 8, they slowly start to drop off. And then they keep on dropping off, they drop off, and then they go to 7 and they do it again. Easy to understand, a repeated pattern everywhere. Let's look at Dota. Starts off at, for some reason, 12. Ooh la la, ain't that a difference? But the real climb, as you can see, is at 7. 7, and it just rapidly escalates. And as you can see, the peak here is a lot earlier, by the way. This can be explained by different age groups that actually play the game, by the way. But age groups will not matter in this discussion at all. It's just the explanation why there's such a huge increase. Because this is when a lot of people get home from school. Or choose to skip school like normal kids should and go play computer games or get drunk. Ah, the Eastern European way. We are the best. And, you know, then you see a dip off because, you know, it's getting late and so on. And, as always, at 12, it's the lowest point because Europe's asleep. But what's happening in America? In America, it's currently this much o'clock. Okay, let's start with Europe. In Europe, it's currently 8 p.m. for you Americans. And in America, it's 11 almost 12 because this needs to be refreshed. While I found out the date, it took around 20 minutes. But it's essentially 11 a.m. 1 p.m. 2 p.m. So roughly, the difference between America and Europe can be calculated 9-ish hours. 9-ish, 10-ish hours. So that kind of correlates. So when it is Europe is just starting to wake up, it is the lowest point because Europe is just starting to wake up, and Americans, considering it's 9 hours, are slowly starting to see this down climb right here because it's the appropriate time. And the difference in these percentiles is, as you can probably guess from what I'm saying, purely based on time zones. Time zones are extremely important for this particular example. And why are they important? Because, you know, Dota, Lost Ark, shouldn't they be all different? How do time zones explain that the dip in Lost Ark is so little compared to Dota, Counter-Strike, Elden Ring, and Black Desert is a little bit of a different case. I didn't find Black Desert's numbers, spoiler alert, but I'm assuming it's also closer to 50%. You see, if you can see player amounts by time, literally by hour, if the line never changes or is in a trajectory upward or downward, that means that the game is being played equivalently in both time zones. In this case, it's Europe and America. And in Lost Ark, spoiler alert, the reason there's such a low drop-off is because of that. And now let's go into a lot more detail why that is. This is the population of America. 332 million as of 2021. Don't care how they get this number. This is the population of Europe by 2021. 747. Essentially, effectively, 2 times more. Okay. Keep in mind, this is Europe and this is just America. So, this is USA population and so on. There's also Africa, Brazil, and all of these things are not taken into account here because the smart people of you are already saying you should take that into account. That's where we're going to take it into account different things. No, this is later. Okay. Here, we're going to understand why CSGO looks the way it does. We're gonna do some basic, because this is the easiest one I found for player distribution. Okay, as you can see, America and Russia are 10%. Country share of percent of CSGO player base. This means this is not 10% of Americans playing. This is not 10% of Russians playing. This means if 10% of the population is playing, 10% of these colors can create the population. This means it doesn't matter if America holds 3 billion people inside it and Russia only makes up like, I don't know, 1,000 people. It means from the total amount of people who do play the game, the equivalent amount of people are playing the game in these countries despite the difference in population size. And that matters a lot. Because here we can plainly see it on the map. You have America making up 10%, you have Russia making up 10%, and then you have places like Canada making roughly up 5%, but then you have places like this in Europe making up 5%. So that's essentially 2 places versus 1. Then you obviously got a little bit here, and then as you can see, there is a split and it's not even, if you are understanding this. Let's look at a different example. Top 20 countries with the highest share percent of CSGO player base. Let's count America versus Europe. Russia. Sadly, let's put this in the Euro basket for now. 11%. USA, 11%. Pretty even. Poland, that's pretty European. Now it's 17% versus 11%. Brazil, let's put that in the USA basket. 16 versus 17. Germany, plus to the Europeans. Turkey, plus to the Europeans. Canada. As you can see, almost everything else is roughly going into the basket of Europe. Which means that the Europe time zone is gonna be bigger. And let me spoil the fun. Let me just spoiler alert. What is this? Oh, this is for Dota. I almost forgot about that. So let me essentially spoil this for you. It roughly means that for every 1 American, there is 2 Europeans playing Counter-Strike in this case. And let's look at the lowest amounts. 330 and 80. That is actually even more. And as we deduced looking from the time zones, this is the lowest point, which means this is the highest point for American players, and this is overtaking with the European players, and that confirms it. This graph confirms what we can see here and here, that CS:GO is being played much more, 2 times or even almost 3 times more than Europeans than the Americans. And that is represented by the time zones. It fits like a goddamn glove. Then we have the Dota numbers. And I'm surprised that we could find this. But essentially, let's just look at this. Russia has 2.5 million players in Dota. And let's look at the USA. 92,000. It didn't, 920,000. It didn't even get to a million. And I don't exactly know number of players, how they calculate it in what time, but essentially this does not matter for us. You add up Canada, you add up the United States, it's not close. You add up people in Brazil and whatnot, It's not even close. You add up people from the Ukraine, that's 700. Look at this. Ukraine is almost rivaling the United States in the amount of people who play Dota. You see what I mean? And when you count all of this up, even in pretty broad strokes, you're gonna get difference. And that difference is going to be roughly for every 1 American, there are 3 Europeans playing Dota. And this is what the graph perfectly reflects. There's a 9-hour difference. So when it becomes nighttime and people start completely logging off of Dota, in America, people, in Europe in this case, people start to wake up in the USA. And so on and so on. And as you can see, this is where the USA starts. And there's a lot of players. You see, this is why here you can see this is at 7. You see this? This is actually a huge dip because there's more people logging off than Americans log off. And this is why this dip here exists. And this is why this dip does not really exist here for Lost Ark, but you can also see it for Counter-Strike. Do you understand? When Europe logs off and Americans start popping in, when Europe starts logging in and Americans start to recede. You can even see a small dip here, you see? And that all is confirmed by the data of amount of people who play by country, because we can accustom those people to time zones. And that is the big thing. And Asmongold said it himself, that there's no Russia in Lost Ark. And the Lost Ark is hugely popular in Russia. Same as CS and Dota. And from these statistics, we know that if we would put a number on it, Russia would be roughly making like 10-ish plus % of a player base. And when we look at the statistics of Lost Ark, you can see that it's not there. The Russian dip does not exist. The Russians should be making 10% of the player base, but they aren't, because you can't play it on Steam in Russia. You see? Pretty simple, right, when you actually combine all of this information together. You just need to know how to combine it together. And that's the thing that Asmongold does not understand. Considering Russia is not here, that means the distribution between USA and Europe is less, and this is why the drop is less, because Lost Ark is not significantly outweighed by Europeans. Americans are actually much closer, and this is also a cultural thing. Americans have no fucking idea what's happening outside in the world. Most Americans think that Alaska is an island to the fucking left. So obviously they are incapable of understanding. By the way, I'm not making this shit up. I'm legitimately not. There have been studies about this. Americans think that they govern most things. They think that they're the big shots in gaming. It's not true. Europe as a market is bigger than America. America just has more expendable cash for it. So that's why the American market matters a lot. But player-wise, Europe outweighs America, as you can see. And since Russia is cut off, Lost Ark, there's a smaller difference. Black Desert Online, if someone could find this, because I could not manage to find it, I would guess that the distribution between European players and American players is also more equal here. Because we know that there's a huge difference between Americans and Europeans in CS, and we know it's in Dota. But in Lost Ark, because of restrictions, we know that it's way less. You know? So that is essentially the explanation. Also, Elden Ring, the same thing, kind of. Elden Ring's a little bit different. And I know that he also talked about, what's it called? Team Fortress 2, because it's being totally botted. Yeah, Team Fortress is a very special thing, and it's really botted non-stop. So there the line is like 50-ish%, because the bots do make the majority of players. And if the bots are the majority of players, you can still see the actual player amounts, but it's gonna be a pretty much steady line. While if we're talking about real player bases, it's gonna look something like this, because it's the difference in time zones, and that's the whole thing, by the way. Also, Asmongold has absolutely no fucking clue how economics work when it comes to botting. And this is a quick one, don't worry about it, okay? So, gold seller economics are very interesting, because the price of gold does not depend on how much the market wants it usually. The price of gold almost, in the majority cases, is dictated by profitability. And Asmongold says that there could be 100k bots running around in Lost Ark. You know what? He could be right. He deduced it in, a completely moronic way, which is 100% not correct in the slightest fashion, but he could be honestly right. I have absolutely no fucking clue. But I can tell you a little bit of insight about botting in Lost Ark. So, there are people that said that, you constantly go into low-level zones and you see bots. The way Lost Ark works as a game, that literally will always be the case. Because real people have no reason to be in low-level zones farming mobs. But bots do. Bots 100% do. And the way that Lost Ark is set up with channels, obviously, if there's room for it, you're gonna be put into the channel with bots. Essentially, that just means that, well, you're gonna see if you go to a low zone, you're gonna see bots, and that's the only thing that you're gonna see, because you're gonna be put in the exact channel where all of them are, because there's no need for other channels. So that's one explanation right there. Two is the thing about the gold prices. When Lost Ark started, 1,000 gold costed €1. After bots started flourishing, which means that there's a lot more competition for people to buy gold. And if bots flourish, that means the price of gold goes down. Asmongold, I think, also fucking said the opposite thing for some whatever fucking moronic reason. I honestly don't understand that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. But anyway, the more bots have access to gold, the lower it's gonna get. Because gold's worth is set by profitability, not by demand. If it's profitable to sell X amount of gold for 30 cents, they're gonna do it, because they're gonna sell more and they're gonna replenish their stocks and they're gonna sell, essentially they're gonna make more of a profit. But currently, it's a different story. Bots started to get banned. Then so first it was €1. Then, after the bots got rolling, it dropped down to 0.3 per thousand gold. Then bots started to get banned. Then it got back up to €1 because it was harder to keep the gold alive and afloat in the game before it got banned. So that was the profitability line for bot farms. And now, recently, I saw it for €2 for 1,000 gold, which is double the price. Which means, this doesn't make sense, because when you look at the actual Steam charts, you're gonna see that this player base has increased by 1,000 players per active players per day. And those cannot be bots, because in this time span, the price of gold increased. Which means, if they are all bots, either this is the most moronic, ineffective bot farm in the history of, well, let's be real, honestly, fucking ever, or the bots are going down and this is actual real players. But again, do you see how easy it is to think that, yeah, by the way he calculates the bots is, he looks at the lowest, he looks at the highest, he calculates that the difference here is 20%, and every other game has like a 40, 50, 60%. Which means that this difference should be, from the peak to the lowest, should be 2 times higher. Which means 440, 560, which means the amount of bots should be around 150,000 or something like that. That's the logic he applies here. And it is obviously incorrect, as I stated previously. Plus, it's further amplified by the fact that gold prices are going up, not down. Ask Runescape, what happens to gold prices what happens to gold and item prices when bot farms are in check, and what happens when they aren't in check. We have tons of data to support this. If gold is flowing in without a hinge, if bots are not being banned, gold prices drop as rocks. If it's hard to sell gold, if bots get banned, they increase the price because they need to make a profit. Also, I'm not gonna go over this. I'm just gonna say quickly 2 words about it. But if you use Google Trends to gauge a popularity of a fucking game, like a month or 2 after it launched, I want to say some really fucking nasty words to how stupid you need to be to try and do that shit. It's almost never applicable. Holy... Like, that got me fucking mad. I'm not gonna lie. The fact that Asmon tried to use Google goddamn Trends to gauge and back up his consensus about the fact that there's I wanted to make a hole in the goddamn... on the goddamn... wall. I really did, because it can almost never be used like that. Sure, there's that one time in a billion where it is actually usable, but no, I'm not even gonna go into detail why that is not true, because it's just so stupid. It is just so fucking stupid. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Did I forget anything? Oh, Grand Theft Auto. Okay, so as you can see, Grand Theft Auto, not the same thing, but as you can see, it's a little bit different, right? You know why this is? Look at this. This is 12. This is when everything starts to drop. And if you compare Grand Theft Auto, by the way, I specifically looked up Grand Theft Auto and I'm going to explain why. As you can see, everything starts going up around 7 in Europe, right? And then you see that everything starts to go down when it's 12 and everyone goes to sleep, and until 7. But Grand Theft Auto is the opposite. Look at this. This is where it should be almost the peak in Europe. Well, actually, this should be where it's the peak in Europe. But this is where it should go down. This is close to its lowest it should be. And this is when it should start to go only up. But here we can see a huge difference. Well, not a huge difference, but a pretty minor difference. And the peak is at a very strange time. Usually it's like 3 hours later, right? You know why I found GTA 5 for this example? Because I googled. Where is it? Here it is. Most popular game in America. And what video games are popular in the USA? Grand Theft Auto 5. And what do you know? It matches. Who would have expected, right? Who would have expected? So yeah, as you can see, if someone's expected to be very popular in America, while not too popular in Europe, the graph is going to be more or less flipped. And this is as close, I would say, as it is to flip. Because look at this. It's going up pretty... You can't find the same shit ever. Look at this. 0. Well, actually, here it goes up. This is an Asian game or something. I didn't put in Japan and all those other places, because then the shit becomes really complicated to explain. You're just gonna have to trust me on that it doesn't really change any deductions. But yeah, everywhere else, it's the lowest point, and it slowly starts to go up. And this is where it really goes up, because Europe goes up. But here, it's constantly different. Admittedly, I honestly don't know if you see this, because you need to understand data. And it's really hard to explain. I can't honestly explain it better than this. But GTA really shows the difference between Americans and what it looks like when it's almost 50-50, because you can just fucking see it. You can literally just see it. Anyway, this was Closer Since Then. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a nice day. Bye bye.